Since you, our lovely audience, has a law background, then we can talk about FinTech, we can talk about LegalTech, we can talk about the integration between the two. And as we're doing this, you can think about how this relates to your experience, or, we can make it relevant to your experience as we're going through. I have a rather artisanal approach to these things. I'm not a legal technologist and I'm not a computer scientist, but I've been using these things because I thought I would like to have a job in a few years' time. And as these things are changing and evolving so quickly, and they're changing the landscape around us, and they're changing the world landscape very significantly around us, we better be ahead of this. So I took the decision during the pandemic, where I had a lot of time looking out the window thinking things. I thought I will just try and adopt everything that comes on the second it comes on, figure out what it is, figure out how to use it, and then make a business out of telling other people about it. And I think we have a situation in our hands that presents an opportunity to students taking classes such as this, and a danger at the same time. Because automation, technology in a variety of fields is awesome. It is awesome for the people who know how to use it. But the more you automate, the less you need volume of people to perform the tasks. So where does that leave our graduates, and where does this leave people in the legal profession that are doing tasks that are moving away into automation? If you are the person that designs or runs the machine or adapts the machine to the client, then you're guaranteed to have a job in the future. If you are the person that is doing things in a traditional way that might not be useful or necessary anymore, either you're going to find yourselves out of a job, or you're going to find your competitiveness decreasing and the amount of money that people want to pay you slowly decreasing. So we need to be ahead of the curve here, and it is a constant struggle to get ahead of the things because everything is developing now at such speed. So I wanted to offer a brief introduction of what do we mean by FinTech, the sort of players and products that we've got available, and some of the trends that are developing in this field, to talk about the relationship between FinTech and LegalTech and where we can draw a distinction perhaps between the two, to reflect on what we mean by innovation in legal practice, and then to start worrying about stuff. So what does it mean? What does all this mean for access to justice, for instance? What does all this mean for jobs and the jobs market and prospects for graduates, especially considering the challenges of AI and all of these things? Now, I know that this sounds quite ambitious to cover in a single presentation, but we can just try and talk about it and see what happens. One of the problems that we have in this area is that it is populated by rather empty buzzwords, full of buzzwords and trendy terms with kind of vague meanings. So this sector, unfortunately, suffers from hoo-ha and enthusiasm and a lack of content and specificity, which can be great if you're offering a presentation to a wide audience. You can do like a TED Talk, and this is going to go great because you can tell everybody how revolutionary this is going to be. But when it comes to actually operationalizing this in your jobs, you run out of steam fairly quickly. But people are committed to the buzzwords. However, every technological innovation and every significant technological innovation has the capability to disrupt. It disrupts in good ways, it disrupts in bad ways. So we can actually have a legitimate discussion as to what we mean about all this. Now, FinTech, lovely term, everybody loves it, everybody uses it. What does it actually mean? Well, the Financial Stability Board, it says technologically enabled financial innovation that results in new business models, applications, processes, or products that has an actual effect on financial markets, institutions, and the provision of financial services. Now, my focus is usually financial services and banking, so I'm going to be talking about this. But of course, a lot of this applies in different legal domains, and it has implications for legal practice as well in a variety of ways. what is your personal engagement with FinTech? Have you done something in your lives that you think attaches to this domain? Financial services is a domain that is very heavily regulated and controlled. There's a good reason for this, because you don't want to put your money in something that goes poof and then you're left without any money. So the state has got a very significant interest in controlling who holds your money, what do they do with that, and making it available for you when you want to. So anything in the traditional banking domain is very heavily regulated, because the traditional job of banks was to take your money as deposits and then give it out as loans to enable people to carry out their business. So it facilitates economic interaction by performing these basic functions. It's not going to be fun if you go to make a withdrawal out of the ATM and it says, sorry, no, the bank currently ran out of money because we gave out an extraordinary amount of loans and we don't have any cash left. Or we bet your money in some things that we thought were going to be great, so we spent it all on Bitcoin and now we don't actually have it. Because banking is so regulated, availability of products that serve the needs of the audience tended to be quite limited or quite expensive. For instance, think about 5-10 years ago. You wanted to open a multi-currency bank account because you have clients in other jurisdictions. You don't want to take the currency risks because you don't want to convert to sterling. So, of course, you have a business bank account in sterling. Everybody always had this. But when they're paying you in euros or US dollars, the bank will convert it into your sterling account and charge you transaction fees. You don't want this. You want to keep the money in the currency that it's coming in, so then you can spend it into that currency when you need to. Having a multi-currency bank account in the UK in high street banks was a nightmare. Both because the majority of banks did not offer you that facility and because they were charging very high transaction fees. So they would rob you in exchange rates when you were going from one currency to the other, or they would give you fairly decent exchange rates that can approximate what is happening in reality, but then charge you high transaction fees. This was a problem. If you wanted a multi-currency account on the retail level, even worse. Right? Have you tried to open a multi-currency account with a traditional bank at any point? Well, in the UK, this was always a problem. So the only bank that you could find that would offer you sterling, euro, and US dollar and a card that would switch from one to the other on demand was Citibank. But Citibank closed its European operations ages ago, and now it didn't take on new customers, and it finally ditched its current customers right now. Thank you very much, Citibank. So I got a text message that's saying, your bank is shutting down. Thank you and goodbye. Yeah. FinTech was a wonderful answer to this problem, because with a financial facilitator like an internet online bank, you could instantly have exactly the answer to your problem. You could have multi-currency accounts, multiple accounts, both on a personal level and on a business level, with very easy convertibility between the currency, with very easy payment instructions and local identification. So the people who pay you in euros, they can use SEPA transfers to pay you in euros. People who pay you in sterling, they can use the local system. Everybody can use SWIFT as well. So the lowest transaction cost method would be available as if you were a local in that currency. Now, you can do this now immediately. You can do this with Revolut. You can do this with Monzo. You can do this with Sterling Bank. You can do this with all sorts of different banks. These accounts will not necessarily always be free. There might be like a cost in maintaining them, but now suddenly you've got the ability to do all this where in the past you didn't. And also verification and opening the accounts is super easy. Why is it so easy? Does it mean that it is not safe? Most of the online facilitators for these things, they are a front that offers good usage and a good user experience, but then it's got a more traditional part of the banking system behind it that facilitates. Tide Bank, for instance, calls itself a bank, but the bank account is provided by another bank that has a local registration and license. So the regulator and the state does not lose control of the process, but the ability of an online provider to collect all these institutional pieces to offer new products is precisely what we're talking about when we're talking about this environment of fintech. Banking products and financial services products are the first thing that comes to mind. Payment facilitation as well, the fact that now you can sort of touch your phone and pay for stuff. A lot of this has been developed through the evolution of payment systems and the technology behind them and the presence of those systems online in this new environment of these banks. Now, it isn't magic and it isn't online is the answer to everything. What it is usability, scalability of things that you didn't have, that you had before, but you couldn't access in the same way. So a lot of what the fintech domain is doing is integrating various existing technologies and systems in things that are user-friendly. And because there's now a multiplicity of providers and a high level of competition, charges are much less and transaction costs are much less than they used to be. This is the part of financial innovation in these services that we see at the receiving end, at the consumer end, either as retail consumers or as business consumers. There's quite a lot of this that happens on the business-to-business end as well. For instance, you have the evolution of software as a service, where a great variety of providers can now sign on to cloud services that provide a great deal of functionality, either by connecting into a cloud service and getting it to do something, or by integrating applications that are existing in the cloud service and integrating into the software that then you make available to your clients. Are you guys connected to any cloud service? Are you utilizing any functionality from Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud Services or anything like this? You probably are through intermediaries, right? Because a lot of the stuff that we do actually utilizes those to offer us services, but you might be using them directly as well. I mean, I've got a Google Cloud account, and I spend ages telling everybody that it's great and it costs nothing, and I've been using it for ages, and then I got a bill. Because if you sign on a business Google Cloud account, you get 90 days trial and £350 to spend. And of course, after the trial is over, you have some kind of free levels of service up to a point, but then certain services begin to charge you money. So it has been beautiful and free. Now it is beautiful at a cost, but it remains beautiful. So I use it. I don't integrate any applications into my software because I don't do this, but I use kind of cloud-based service directly. I use voice to text transcription, so you can take my lectures and you can provide transcripts, and the other way around. I use AI voices to create speech out of my lecture notes, and then I produce kind of podcasts and stuff like that. And there are many things that you can do with these services. What sort of players and products are we talking about in this domain if we're going beyond perhaps the obvious examples that we mentioned in financial services? Well, all the big financial institutions and all the big institutions on the software delivery side are utilizing aspects of financial technology and the new products that are coming around. So you have this kind of multiple relationships that a technology company like Google or Amazon or Microsoft might be utilizing all these technologies to offer products and services, but then the people who buy them also integrate them into their systems to offer additional products and services to their customers. There's a lot of the facilitation and the mechanisms behind that goes with this, as we said, and you've got people who try to do new stuff all the time. So there's always this idea of disruption. I mean, I think this is present in the terminology that you use in this context quite often. Like everything is disruptive. Why is it disruptive? It is disruptive when you do something expected, but in a different way. or you do something completely unexpected that suddenly finds an audience. Like an example of doing something mundane in an unexpected fashion is the integration of AI into the product of a lot of the work that we have. So you have call centers, right? A lot of the call centers were already automated. The fact that now this automation is supported by AI, it means that you can offer the same service, but at a much higher quality, because the AI that you're talking to is much better suited to address customer requests and to respond and to discuss with the customer and get you places. The fact that we could narrate our lecture notes or create podcasts out of lecture capture in here, it's something that people have been doing for decades. But the fact that now you can get good quality AI voices to narrate this or to create a discussion out of this using various AI voices is a disruption to a process that was very well known. If this finds an audience, and you find that a lot of students are actually delighted to listen to those podcasts instead of listening to something that I was recording myself, then this is something new that's been created out of something that was known. So the idea of disruption is both coming up with something that is completely novel and doing something that everybody wants anyway or expects, but doing it in a different way. So let's have a look at various kind of real-life examples of how people are using FinTech. We all already mentioned payments and the facilitation of payments. We can pay with our mobile. We can pay with a smartwatch. We can do all of these things, and we can have digital wallets in which we deposit money, and we can also have multiple currencies within those wallets. This is an important innovation. Now it's facilitated by people that you know. You have Google Pay, you've got Apple Pay, you've got PayPal, you've got all sorts of different facilitators. These are supported by known networks. Many of them are facilitated by MasterCard or Visa in any event to handle the payments. But it is a new system and a new functionality that actually meets customer demand very significantly. And it has broken the barrier that existed in certain countries that were suffering from the lack of traditional institutions. So it's made a great difference in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and so on in the subcontinent, where traditional banks weren't there to serve the needs of the audience, but now payment facilitation through mobile means, so long as everybody's connected in the internet, is actually taking this problem away. And it's kind of replacing that institutional structure with something else that works. Insurance is something that has been affected a lot by automation and having tools that can both calculate and offer products to the customer and handle the customer requests and the customer orders. When you renew your car insurance, do you normally talk to somebody? Or home insurance or something like this? Or your phone insurance? Most of these things we buy online. We can get personalized service that the machine will look at us, our needs, our previous quotes, make sure it's competitive, and then offer us a deal. And all of this is done automatically. And when we wanted to talk to somebody for additional information, we're probably talking to a chat bot that is automated, is not a real person. And even when you call on the phone, you're very likely to be met with an AI voice, and it's again the chat bot, but it's now speaking to you. When you're using customer support in something, do you ask them if they're real people or if they're a chat bot? So I ask them, like, are you a real person? They say, yes, I'm a real person. I say, I don't believe you, prove you're a real person. And that leads into some fun discussions there. Now, for reasons of transparency, this is not yet in the law everywhere, but it is in the law in certain places. They need to acknowledge when they're not real people, because it would misrepresent the situation if you thought you're talking to a real person and the bot does not identify itself as a bot. And also be mindful that there's legislation coming in that is going to mandate disclosure of when people are using AI produced images, AI voices, video, and all the rest of it. So people have, I'm not saying that it would change people's mind about using the product or the service, but it needs to be acknowledged so people can make the distinction when they're talking to a real individual or they're looking at the work product of an individual or not. Investment advice, a lot of this is also being automated. So you feed in information and then you get the responses by integrated networks that can match your desires with what is happening in the market and offer you advice, even medical advice for that matter. When you try to access the GP, that you have to fill in the form and then it gives you some recommendations, I'm not entirely convinced that it is an actual person that looks at it. I think it auto-generates some sort of response and then somebody in the GP service just validates that response to give you some advice. Now, a great deal of the background work when we're dealing with digital assets or financial transactions like clearing for securities, settlement, all the payment settlement that happens when you're using your bank cards and so on, a lot of that is also automated through fintech platforms. If you're thinking about raising money, like crowdfunding and all of that, there's a multiplicity of providers that can bring these things together. This is actually an excellent innovation in opportunities for funding. Instead of asking people for money or trying to go through as an intermediary that is going to offer you that money, like a bank, you can now put your proposal on crowdfunding platforms and say, this is my idea, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what you get by trying to participate, and then you can invite the wider public to invest into your business. And so long as you're using legitimate providers that have got a good track record, that gives the public the confidence to actually participate in what you do. If you don't want to use traditional and legit providers, you can also get some cryptocurrencies. I am not a big fan, but I can see how this can be used in a variety of ways. The very existence of crypto itself, the crypto exchanges and all of that stuff is part of this innovation in products and services that we see enhanced and enabled by all this technology. You've heard about the blockchain. So what I'm worried about is that AI is going to become what the blockchain is. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, everything was about the blockchain. We were launching courses on blockchain. We were having lectures and workshops about blockchain. And it was all like, it's going to be great. It's going to change everything. It's such an innovation. It's so amazing. What does it actually do? I'm not sure, but my God, it's amazing. You got to see it to believe it. Where do you get to see it? I'm not sure. Now, there was a bit of a concern that all this hype about AI would be a little bit like this, but AI is better because it kind of gives tangible applications of what it does as opposed to the blockchain that's a bit more nebulous. But the existence of distributed ledger technologies in the blockchain is also a good illustration of how these things work. And if you're looking at protecting yourself as you're participating in all these new domains, a great deal of cybersecurity, things that have to do with encryption, authentication, the use of biometrics and all of that passes through this domain as well. For the vast majority of people, you don't care how it works and what's inside it, so long as you get the function that you're after. If we need to dig a hole and what we're after is the outcome, so we're interested in a hole, we don't care. I don't particularly care if there's 5 people with shovels or there's 1 person with a digger, because I'm interested in the outcome. So I will be interested in how long it takes to get that outcome and what is the cost of achieving that outcome, but the actual mechanics of it are not relevant to me. And how the digger works, I've got no idea. I mean, I can tell you how the person with the shovel works, but how the digger works, whether it's powered by electricity, whether it's powered by diesel, and how the pistons and the machines and stuff work inside it, I've got no clue. But at the end of the day, I don't care. So when you're out there using something, if you want an AI chatbot to assist you because your broadband is not working and you want somebody to give you advice on how to reset your router, you don't care whether you're talking to a guy in India or you're talking to a chatbot, right? What you want is the advice to fix it. Now, I had a problem with the iPhone the other day. The damn thing wouldn't switch on. And I contacted Apple support on the chat. And they were like, take the cable, plug it in this end, put it on the computer on the other end, launch iTunes, do this, do that, press, you know how they say, right? You press that button and that button and that button, you jump up 3 times, you swivel around yourself, yeah, you sing Merry Christmas, put it down, and then immediately press the button on the computer and a menu appears, right? So I did all that. I really don't care that I was talking to a real person or I was talking to a chatbot. What I wanted was the instructions on how to fix it. And when I fixed it, I was happy with it. I did ask them, just to mess with them, whether they're real people or whether they're a chatbot. And they pretended they were real. And then I told them I was a chatbot. Right? That confuses the hell out of everybody. That perhaps is a way to get a little bit of perspective. So all this hype and all this disruption and all this kind of innovation and technology, for the vast majority of people, will be irrelevant, because what they want is time, an appreciation of time, an appreciation of cost, and usability. If we are the people behind the machine that are helping all this happen, then it matters to us and we need to understand the functionality. The user will probably not care about any of this. I have a business bank account with Tide. Do I care how Tide has organized itself? I care that I've got a digital wallet, right? I don't care that the underlying bank account is provided by a Clearbank or is provided by Tide by itself or where the registrations are. What matters to me is, you benefit from the financial services guarantee in case the bank goes bust. Now, whether the bank is the front brand or a behind institution that they've got a contractual relationship with, I don't care. I care that I come under the UK compensation scheme, because since I live here, I've got better chances of negotiating with this government to get my money back. If I was covered by an external scheme, I would be worried, especially if it's a country far away. But from that point onwards, really, guys, I don't care, okay? I don't care if the bank that has the license behind the brand, my online facilitator, is Clearbank or it's HSBC or whomever, right? I got another digital wallet with Zing or whatever they're called that is an offshoot of HSBC. So it really makes no difference to me. What I care about is the government guarantee being applicable to this product. Behind the scenes, and see how things are organized on the inside, then we are getting into the domain that we're thinking about the lawyers that facilitate all this. So if the audience is more on the legal side, then this becomes more interesting and more sort of practically important. What do the lawyers do that participate in the fintech domain? And what does innovation in technology mean for the provision of legal services? The lawyers that support fintech do the same thing they've always done. It is effectively contracts, the creation and negotiation of contracts, and then contracts management to make sure that things go well. The essence of most legal work is in assisting your client to negotiate contracts, express the deal in usable legal terminology, and making sure that you covered all your bases in case something unexpected happens. And then managing that contract and make sure that everybody performs to expectation is also part of the job. There is an evolving amount of regulation that comes behind those products. So in the provision of your legal assistance to your client, you will need to be able to guide them through the regulatory environment. This normally starts low with new products, and it keeps getting more and more complicated. So this is a business opportunity for us. So the legal domain that supports the evolution of fintech is having to keep up not only with an innovation in the technology and the products that these firms are offering, but also has to keep up with a very dynamic regulatory landscape. Because all of these things are causing issues for the states that are trying to control the situation and make everything safe. They raise a series of concerns across a number of areas. As legislation progresses, you need to be able to advise your clients or the firm that you're working on how to be compliant with national regulation, how to be compliant with things that are more directly applicable or are applicable to cross-border interactions, and also how to anticipate changes in the future so you don't invest in stuff now that might become illegal in 5 years' time, or you don't invest in products that then you have to re-engineer in order to meet incoming regulation. Because you get to think about these things, so at least you're ahead of the curve in thinking, how is the regulatory environment changing about the variety of these processes? So if I go work in relation to those processes, how can I help my clients anticipate what the environment is going to be like in 2 years and 5 years' time? I'm not going to say 10 years because these things are moving so fast that nobody will be able to see what this is going to be like in 10 years' time. How are the lawyers going to use these technologies in their everyday practice? Are you big fans of ChatGPT? It is useful a lot of the time, but it's getting a lot of bad press because it's new. People don't understand how to use these technologies, and the people who didn't really know how to use them but tried to use them and got in trouble create nice, scary stories for the press. So you've heard about the lawyer who got kind of disgraced at court because they produced their legal submissions using ChatGPT and it was full of errors. It was talking about cases and legislation that doesn't exist and all of that stuff, right? There was a case in the US. There are certain cases in other jurisdictions as well. This is a poor use of emerging technologies. But think about it this way. A lot of the stuff that a lawyer does are mundane, predictable, and repetitive. The reason why people pay you to do them is because they can't be bothered to do them themselves. Why do you have a cleaner at home? It's not that you're incapable of cleaning your own bathroom, it's that you don't want to. And you can actually afford to subcontract this unpleasant work to somebody else. This is why the majority of small businesses hire accountants. In this country, you don't need to have an accountant because accounts for small businesses do not need to be audited. You can just do it yourself. But most people either lack the skills to do it or they just can't be bothered to acquire the skills. So they're happy to get an online accountant who is actually a bot, is not a real person, and pay them £10 a month for them to run profit and loss statements and things like this because they just can't be bothered to categorize their own invoices. Yeah? So a great deal of legal work, or in any event, work in the fringes of the legal that is undertaken by law firms, is repetitive and mundane and does not require expertise. This is precisely the sort of work that can be automated using many of the tools and facilities that we've got available. You can now make custom applications on the OpenAI platform, so you can create your own in-house ChatGPT that deals with specific queries. If your work is advising people on easy things like kind of choosing a pensions provider, right? You're offering basic financial advice, helping people choose between insurance products, choosing between pensions, choosing between savings products. Or you're helping people to write a will. But again, this is kind of fairly predictable process. You ask the same questions, you get predictable responses, you have a template that you amend. Anything that is produced on the basis of the template can be automated. So one of the ways in which a law firm can enhance its practice is by using automation for these types of tasks. Anything that is built on a template that you would populate with information, an AI bot can do it for you. You can choose to freak out about this or you can choose to be happy. Me, I'm the client. So I'm interested in paying the minimum amount of money for legal services. So if I'm using a conveyancing solicitor, and up until now I would need to pay £3,000 because they would employ a recent law graduate or a paralegal or a junior lawyer to do the conveyancing documentation. But instead I've got the option of paying £1,000 because a bot has done all the documentation, has done all the searches, produced all the information and populated all the templates. And then it was seen by the supervisor to make sure it's okay, I would go for the £1,000. That's mostly because I don't trust the sleepy law graduate, right? But it means something. Now, if you want to be the law graduate and you're looking for a job, this is a danger for you. But for the law firm, they're saving money. For the client, they're saving money, and in all probability, they're getting a better product. So, mundane, repetitive things, data entry, data analysis, populating templates, matching predictable desires with predictable outcomes in terms of advice. All this can be automated beautifully. So this makes a great deal of sense both in financial services and the provision of legal services. If we're getting into data analysis, this is where this is an absolute revolution. So for this, I can be enthusiastic. And I can tell you that it works because I've tried it myself. I got asked by one of my clients to produce a workshop on AI and innovation in legal services. I have a track record in doing these things. My client has a track record of delivering these seminars. They always try to offer something new because they've got repeat trade. I mean, they offer CPD, people come back, and every year they do something different. So they asked me to produce something new, relevant for 2024, but something that does not replicate existing content in case we get the same people coming in, so they don't want to have the same presentation twice because they're paying good money to be there. Yeah? What I would have done in the pre-AI era, I would have printed out all the descriptions for all the seminars that the provider has delivered over the last 2 or 3 years. I would print out all the seminars and all the syllabuses from the things that I do that I have done over the years. Think about what I've done that is new and relevant and try to shift through all of those in order to produce something that is distinct from the previous offering and contemporary enough and relevant to what is happening today. Now, of course, this is what I do for a living, right? So I could have done it. This is what I've always done. It's not a big deal, but it would take me 2 or 3 days. What I did instead was to use the data analysis capabilities of AI to do an initial draft of all this work. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, "Hello, ChatGPT, can you help me with something?" Why was I nice to ChatGPT? Actually, there's a big debate as to whether you should be nice to the bots or not, and whether there's a problem with kind of giving them human characteristics and recognizing them as such, and there's ethics implications and so on. So there's a good stream of thought saying that you shouldn't be nice. I think this is bad. If you start being unpleasant to the bot, then you're going to be unpleasant to the person on the phone and unpleasant to the person at the door. I think this kind of puts you in a negative mind frame, right? So be nice to the bot. So I said, "Please, ChatGPT, help me out with this." And I said, what I've been tasked to do is produce a syllabus for a 4-hour workshop. This is who I am. This is my CV. These are the titles of the things that I've written recently. These are the things that I'm working on. Copy-paste from my existing sources, right? Don't imagine that I wrote all this stuff from scratch. Copy-paste my CV, copy-paste my current syllabus from the various things I'm teaching, copy-paste pieces of the abstracts of my articles, give it to that. I said, read all this and wait. The guys that I'm going to produce this workshop are these guys. So here's some information about them. Copy-paste their about page. This is what they've done in the past. Copy-paste all the program descriptions for what they've done in the past. This is who the intended audience is going to be. Lawyers, accountants, business people, blah, 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 blah. The way we had identified it when we were discussing the workshop. And I said, now, considering all this information, all of this data, produce an indicative syllabus that is within my areas of expertise to deliver, that is distinct from what has been delivered in the past, incorporates what is happening now, and the latest things that I've been talking about in my work. Press send, like a slap in the face, the answer comes back, pro forma syllabus, wonderfully done, great ideas, because it looked at all the stuff I gave it, so it is within context, and also it utilizes everything it knows. And clearly there are a lot of people talking about these things at the moment, so there's a lot of information out there. If I was on the internet-enabled version of it through Microsoft Bing, that it's got that integration with ChatGPT 4, I could have actually asked it to have a look through the internet and see whether people are delivering similar workshops and get some ideas. But I didn't do this because I was using the offline version at the time. Not only did all this, but then I said, after I amended it a little bit, because it always needs some degree of amendment. It's not like make me a pizza, you press the button and the pizza shoots in your face, right? You need to change it a little bit. And then I said, do different language versions for it, please, because this was for multilingual audience, right? And the translations were perfect as well. What did I do here? I used its data analysis and interpretation skills to accelerate my work. It is still my work, but I'm using this technology in order to get to this outcome faster. So instead of digging the hole with my shovel, I used the digger to dig the hole. I got there in 2 hours instead of spending 3 days that I would have spent in the past. The greatest problem for a lawyer is to find adequate templates to work from. The advantage of you working in a law firm is that they've been doing this for a while, so they've got templates for everything. If you're working in-house, especially if you're new, like new as the whole service, I mean, there are no other people to help you, and you're trying to create processes that are repeatable, you're assisting the sales service. So you want to create some templates for non-disclosure agreements. You need to create some templates for contracts. This stuff is very difficult, right? I've been doing this work for 20 years. I still struggle to draft my own contracts that are pretty much on the same stuff with my clients, but I still have to think about it every time. Even though I've got the template that I created, it's not easy. So imagine being hired, joining a new team, you're responsible for coming up with templates to assist the sales team. Having to create these things from scratch is a nightmare. You usually would need to pay somebody, get a subscription to Practical Law or something to retrieve templates from there, but this is a very, very, very expensive service. So what you can do instead is use tools that are at a lower cost. Just trust me, even a subscription to ChatGPT is going to cost you less than the kind of £4,000 a year personal subscription to Practical Law, right? And use that to help you generate templates. So, data analysis, data crunching, unbelievably good. Trying to go through documents to find stuff is what most junior lawyers spend the whole time doing. Due diligence, right? When you're sent to work on some sort of purchase or a merger and you need to go through kind of stacks of documentation, these things can be done now by the AI in no time. The creation or populating of templates, super important. You can either have things like kind of predictive analysis, thinking you can gameplay, saying, this is who I am and what I'm trying to do and what are my objectives. This is the client, this is the other side of the negotiation and the objectives of their client. Can we role play this and you offer some possible, if I send them this, are they likely to accept it or not, and why not? So then you can game ahead the negotiation, right? You can do all this with the AI. Plus the wonderful prospect that you can give it some of the tasks to do fully, right? It can write people's wills, right? Using a pro forma that is already there. It can create pricing models. It can create expectations for this. Add to this chatbots and virtual assistants and all this, and you could offer a stellar service without anybody being there. Like, you've got a proper application integration from the cloud. So you incorporate a chatbot that can answer simple queries. You can run the whole university by yourself. Actually, I should delete this from the recording because this might be the reason why the university has fired everybody in kind of background services, right? Because look, my interaction with you, The whole thing could be automated. What emails do I get from the students? I'm not sure how long the assessment needs to be or when it needs to be submitted. I'm not sure which assessment I need to do. I want to apply for mitigating circumstances. How do I do this? I've been late. I'm worried I'm going to suffer a penalty. I'm thinking of studying for a master's. What would you recommend? I am feeling unwell, and is there anybody that can help me? Right? I've run out of money. How can we discuss some kind of schedule of payments? These are repeat queries that are coming every time. All of these could be answered by the bot. So it could be Yanis's virtual assistant that actually has the interpretive capabilities of ChatGPT, the narrative text capabilities of ChatGPT, and I can have auto email back responses to all of these things. And you know what? It would be exactly the same stuff I would say anyway. Do you have a problem with this? So if I had an auto emailer that responded to predictable queries, when it received a non-predictable query, it would just email me instead and say, this needs the attention of a human agent. I don't think from the level of the recipient of the service that this is a problem, because they're getting what they want is the hole in the ground. They don't care if I'm carrying a shovel. So if you want to know what to click on the university website to apply for MCs and it emails you back the link, isn't that what you wanted? But that's why you innovate gradually. And that's why this is a constant process. Because the technology we have available at the moment does certain things excellently, but not others. In 2 months, it will do other things excellently. So this is not about whole-scale adoption for everything at the same time. It's a gradual process of integrating more capability when that capability has been tested and it is sufficiently robust. Key question is the client willing to continue to pay if they're getting an automated process? Because a lot of what the client pays for is your expertise. If you automate it, you need to consider whether you share the benefits of the reduced costs with the client or not. I think the greatest danger is this. And the human element, if you want a human element in interaction is important. If you were listening to my pre-recorded lecture, you wouldn't have come in here, right? Because the fact that we're here and we can talk to each other is an important aspect of the experience. So this cannot be replicated by something that I am not here and is a bot pretending to be me. But if you just wanted the content and you were listening to the pre-recorded lecture while you're chopping potatoes or something, then it doesn't really matter. You don't expect the human interaction if you're listening to a podcast. The problem then might be the cost. If you pay £200 to attend and see the lecture live, it's maybe because part of that is the person being there live. You wouldn't want to pay £200 for the pre-recorded lecture. So if your service splits the benefit of the automation with the customer and charges the customer less, then if the customer notices if it's important to them, right, then it makes it worthwhile. But the adoption is going to be gradual on the things that you've tested enough, because this is your reputation, the quality of your work, is the stuff that you tested enough to be fine. There are certain things that I do that I charge the same. They don't mind if it's me or if it's automated. We will still be offering options and advice and explanation for the client. How we produce this will change. But the way we work now is not the same way we worked in the past. We have already changed. It's just that the previous change was not presented as a revolution. When I was a student, I got coursework to produce. I was at Essex, the University of Essex. Yeah, it's still there. They still have the same lift in the library. You know what's a paternoster lift? It's a lift that doesn't have a door. It's like the thing they have in Victorian era that the food would come through, right? So it's just a continuous thing of just thinking about it makes me dizzy. So I would get my coursework question. I would go to the library, find a quiet spot, walk around the corridors, pick the books that I wanted, put them down, either take some photocopies if I needed the entire page or kind of transcribe the bits that I needed, and then go through multiple notepads. I was writing and rewriting what I need to do to produce my essay. And once I had it fully written down, I would go to the computer room, try to nudge all the guys who were playing computer games out of the way, and type in the computer because I needed to submit my essay typed. This is how old I am, right? Now, I don't even have to get out of bed because I can just turn on the laptop. I can even do it in the phone if I wanted to. I can get all the resources I need immediately on the phone. I can copy-paste whatever I want, or I can integrate it. I have tools that do the referencing automatically as well when I'm taking stuff. I can use enhancements that are already present in the software to actually help with the language as well and make things sound nicer. So I can do all this without getting out of bed. So the way in which I perform this task is very, very different, but the task is the same. So what we will do as we're continuing to integrate AI tools into our practice, and especially for legal practice, we are doing this. We're changing the tools that we use and the way in which we're using them, but fundamentally, the nature of the job hasn't changed, and the supervisory role of the person with the knowledge and the expertise and the human skills to negotiate with other humans who are trying to achieve something, it's still there. The difference is cost, speed, how many people do you need working for you? Because if in the past you needed a bunch of people and a bunch of paralegals or something to do this work, you don't need them anymore. So it's weird, isn't it? It is revolutionary and not at the same time. And the results will surprise you. So, I produce Instagram reels for a client. Who would have thought, right? And I told them, do you want me to narrate? Because it's multiple choice questions, right? It's samples of multiple choice questions that we put on Instagram. I said, do you want me to narrate it or you want the AI voices? They listened to me. They listened to the AI voice. Said, go with the AI voice. I'm charging them the same. Maybe they have a problem with my accent. But you see, the AI voice obviously lacks a bit of character and the human element and the personal element, but they were happy to go with it. The users don't care. There is no difference in the views on the Instagram reels that have got a person narrating and the ones that are narrated by AI. I produce podcasts myself or narrated by AI. No difference. Because what the people want is to listen to, here's an hour's overview of civil litigation, of contract law, of company formation, as they're going for a job. They don't care if it's a Greek guy reading it or if it's an American voice. And whether they notice or not that it's AI, I don't know, but nobody seems to care. Right? And performance is the same. From an ethical point of view, and to anticipate changes in regulations, as I said, you need to look ahead how these things are going to go. I identify when it's an AI voice. And I identify when the product has been produced using AI tools. Acknowledging what it is that you do and offering transparency is good practice, is the ethical thing to do, and soon is going to be mandated by law. So YouTube, within 2024, is going to identify AI-produced content. It's not going to penalize it in any way, but you're going to get a notification in the same way that you get now a notification that says this is sponsored content. So you're thinking, maybe if this person got paid to present this product, there's an incentive, so it's not maybe completely independent. It's going to be a notification that says you're watching an AI-produced video or AI-produced imaging, or this is narrated by an AI voice. It might not make any difference, but it's important for access, for legitimacy, right, and transparency. Now, for access to justice or access to services in general, this is a little bit of a concern, because as with every technology, there are some initial costs in being able to access this technology. Anything new will disadvantage the people who, A, cannot afford it, or cannot acquire the skills to use it, or are not able to acquire the skills to use it. You've seen your grandmothers trying to use the iPhone? You know what I mean. In an accelerated digital transition, it raises issues and concerns, but there are issues and concerns about the way we live anyway and everything around. When we have an issue for our audience and we can do something about it, then this is the time to think about it. For instance, if some of our students are using AI chatbots, or they're using ChatGPT to produce essays, and we allow this and we reward this because the outcome is better, but the students who cannot afford to use this are penalized by getting lower marks for not having the capacity to do this at a higher spec, then we have an issue. Because we're supposed to be offering a level playing field for achievement to our students. So if it's the use of technology that makes this uneven, then it's an issue for us how to enable our students to do it. In the work that you're doing, in the client that you're dealing with, how can you integrate this into your pricing? How can it help you accelerate your work, improve the product of your work, change your work practices, and then are your clients and your counterparties and so on happy that you're using this? If your client is willing to pay for a personal service that is human-based and is willing to pay a premium to achieve this, this is also perfectly fine. If they're interested in the process as well as the outcome and they're willing to pay the extra costs of that process, it's fine. But because we're just starting out now, I think the prices have not yet dropped while the companies are actually taking advantage. They're improving their margins by automating a great deal of services without being transparent to the client. So the client is not given the option to pay less. The client is still paying the same for something that is costing less and less to produce. At some point, the client's going to figure it out and request that some discounts are in place and that the benefits of all this automation are passed down. So all of this, in conclusion, is a wonderful innovation in what we can do. If you don't want to call it a revolution, you don't have to. But we are now getting powerful machines that are allowing us to do at speed and reduced costs the things that we wanted to do anyway. And in some cases, as we discussed about FinTech, they offer new products and services that would not have been available before.